Customs, that's Adewale Adeni, was at the Lila border station, which is somewhere in Sokoto, um, to inspect the enforcement of the border restrictions between Nigeria and Niger, which are part of the sanctions that were spelled out by the ECOWAS, by the leadership of ECOWAS. Obviously, and ECOWAS is currently led by our president, and this one of the things that they've tried, and this is a reaction to the coup that happened in Niger. And these are one of the sanctions that have been rolled out against the current government in Niger. So there are several other sanctions that have been rolled out, and there are some economic sanctions which are being rolled out, which affect, I think, people who are involved with the regime and all that. But we are focusing now on the border closure. So yes, there's been some border closure. The acting controller general is doing his bit by going around to make sure that this is clearly enforced. So it was one of the points where this should be enforced in Sokoto at the Lila border station. So one of the other things that came up there, he also went to the opportunity to go obviously reassure the men who are around there about their welfare. He mentioned the fact that some of them had lost their lives to brigands, which is obviously let's not forget the fact that despite all the drama and everything happening in Niger and all the attention towards the Nigeria does have some security challenges. The guys on some of these security challenges have happened across the various border lines because of some of them. I don't know if we call them terrorists or brigands. We have a mixture of these issues that have been happening, and they basically use those border lines, which for a lot of the people who reside around there are artificial borders, because if you ask some of the people who stay around, and I think our former president alluded to it once about having cousins in Nigeria and all that, a lot of people reside around there who live or come from some of those border states they are more at home with their cousins across the border than even most parts of Nigeria. So there's some natural affinity towards that, and their families, their relations, across from Niger to Chad to Mauritania. So why I'm taking care to mention is that Nigerians need to understand that we're not isolated in our dealings across the sub-region. The same way down in the west, you do have some people who have relatives across the border in Benin Republic or Togo. In the north is actually a stronger affinity, so we need to take that into consideration. So he's doing his bit to enforce those the sanctions. Another thing that came up obviously was about the economic impact on people who trade across those borders. And unfortunately, and it's rather unfortunate, yes, there will be some impact for people who have businesses across the border, but it is what it is. Let's not forget that in the last few years we actually shut down a lot of our borders for reasons, reasons that are still not clear to a lot of us, and it did have some serious economic impact on a lot of people. So I'm not trying to sound callous by saying it's not a new thing, but wherever where the grass, what is about where the elephants fight, definitely suffer. So.
All right, well said, Chibuzor. But let's put this out there that the regional body ECOWAS, they're meeting in Abuja today to also see how far they can push these sanctions and what can come out of it to get the Kaki men to either decide to restore democracy or else. But in addition to that, there is also, it seems like these guys on the other side in Niger, they have chosen to listen to one person. One man has been able to make inroad, the former emir of Kano State, that's bringing up to speed latest development now. So in that regard, for allowing to speak with the former emir, does this mean these guys are sending a message across like, okay, seem like we are ready to talk?
It could mean that I'm quite hopeful that it does mean that at least they're ready to negotiate at some point or have a discussion at some point, because earlier there had been a delegation that had gone representing the president, which the head of the junta refused to see, and those guys basically had to find their way back home to their various governments and report that, hey, we went, but this guy refused to see us, and no dice. When the lines of discussions are open at any point in this kind of scenario, it's quite it's useful, it's helpful. The challenges are who they are speaking to and what that person is communicating and what is being communicated back, because I'm not sure I'm not sure if he's speaking in an official capacity at this point or representing any of the ECOWAS leadership.
No, because when he returned, he had gone straight to Aso Rock to report.
So that's why I'm not sure if he's speaking in an official capacity. He might have gone using his position or his relationships.
Yes.
But obviously, given the nature of the discussions, obviously he cannot take action as his role as the emir. He had to go to Aso Rock to give. So I'm just hoping that that contact point will actually open up those discussions and we can have some fruitful discussions. The challenge for me is that, and for me, it's not looking at this as an isolated issue, because I've heard various comments and everybody has a point in what they are saying. Leave them to sort out their issues. Nobody in this country has argued against it. And I always ask most times that when you have coups, when we've had coups even in Nigeria, how many people came out to protest against it? We've been, over time, citizens have been conditioned to think in a particular way. These are guys with guns. If you go out, it's not like when you protest against democratic governments that you have recourse most times. If you go out, you get shot, you get killed, you get locked up. Who's going to speak for those citizens? So either it's good or bad, and I'm not saying that the government there will have, we're making the lives of the people wonderful, but hey, there are crimes, there is incompetence, and there are crimes against state. You cannot jail somebody for incompetence. You can sack him, but you cannot jail somebody for incompetence. If somebody commits a crime, then there's recourse to the law. If he's incompetent, you go through the procedures like we do in HR, and you get the person fired. In this case, you go through the elections, or you go to recourse and you get him out. We need to learn how to deal with democracy, or whatever system we've agreed to use in Africa. We cannot be impatient to try and force the narrative every time.
Thank you very much, Chibuzor. If you just joined in, you're on to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. I've got Chibuzor Nwaezeapu here, would be helping us to dissect the paper. And Gbugbemi Atimomo is also here. And Gbugbemi, it means I'll be with you shortly, but then let's get the listener into the conversation at this time. You can be part of the conversation by sending us WhatsApp messages onto 0809 444 0981. The number once again will be 0809 444 0981. WhatsApp messages only. I see Chioma Yemi from Marina already, but then I'm coming to you, Gbugbemi, with this piece. From the Vanguard newspaper, the headline, 2 dead, 5 injured in Lagos multiple crash. That was a sorry sight to look at yesterday. I got to see that as I made my way back home. It wasn't something you smiled about. It was, you had chill in your spine just seeing that, the impact. So I'd like you to walk us through this.
Okay, so yesterday there was an accident that occurred on Eco Bridge inward Alaka Surulere involving a truck, about 3 saloon cars, an SUV, and a minibus, or what we call a Korokwe. And it was reported that preliminary investigation showed that the Mack truck, was on top speed and it collided with all the other vehicles, causing the accident. Unfortunately, 2 people died in that accident. We commiserate with their families at this time, and they were rushed to the closest general hospital, which unfortunately they had passed on. LASMA has put out a statement to say that motorists should ensure as much as possible that their vehicles are in good condition before embarking on any journey across the state. It was discovered that the Mack truck, the brakes failed. For me, there are a number of issues that I see, with this accident. One of the very key things is we have a VIS service, a vehicle inspection service. 2 years ago, towards the end of upper year, it became mandatory that everyone had to get a vehicle inspection check and then get a certificate. I know that for commercial vehicles, you have to do that every 6 months. For private vehicles, it's once a year. The truth of the matter is that many of these trucks, commercial vehicles, do not do these things. We see them on the road, we see them emitting smoke, we see the vehicles in a high state of disrepair. So it is clear that they have not gone through any MOT check at all. And I begin to wonder who is enforcing these checks. So it's easy for the officials to stop private vehicles. Every time I've seen the officials on the road, they always stop private vehicles. They rarely ever stop commercial vehicles, even when you can clearly see that the vehicle is deficient.
Yes,
they rarely ever stop them. So it's not enough for LASMA to say that we should make sure that our brakes are working and all of that. There needs to be a whole lot more enforcement with these checks. Then as much as possible, I'd also like to talk about the state of the road infrastructure. So the roads itself, the fact that there are barely any lights, any street lighting.
This was in broad daylight. Let's put it out.
No, I'm just adding that to it. The fact that there are barely any street lighting. Because I was driving along, was it third, I can't remember, third mainland or one of the other major roads very recently, and there are no lights. So people have resorted to putting on their full lights all the time. So um it's not enough to say that the road users, the drivers, are complicit without also mentioning the role of government as well in ensuring all of these things. Then, as much as possible, where you have officials on the road, LASTMA, FRC, all the road traffic officials, we also need them to focus as much as possible on preventing accidents rather than focusing on just is the right word, arrest, apprehending road traffic defaulters. I feel that there's a greater focus on apprehending those who default traffic rules as against trying to prevent traffics from occurring.
All right, well
So
said.
traffic.
I'd like to just chip in
Okay, go ahead.
quickly. So obviously, one of the maybe I think we were being nice by saying some of the roads. A huge chunk of the roads, both the federal and the state-owned roads, major roads, do not have any lighting. When they do have lighting, it's in parts. So I can even speak as far as Alausa, down to Third Mainland, down to Ikorodu Road. Most of us drive by instinct. Even the road that this accident happened, I went through it early yesterday morning. I knew most of us started turning back at the particular point because one person started turning back. We didn't know what was happening in front,
Okay.
but we did. The roads are not user worthy. When we talk about the incentives of the people who enforce it from the VIOs, they do not stop public vehicles. In fact, most of these guys, some of them don't even have plate numbers. They have no, so you look at it, they don't have registration. Talk less of looking at it, they are roadworthy. So we really need to focus on maybe there needs to be look back. Why are we doing what we are doing? Are we trying to keep people safe, or are we just looking for how to raise funds?
All right, that brings us to you. We'll now stay with you on this story. But before we get into your story, and the Punch newspaper, I would like to invite the listener into the conversation at this time. On the phone line, 0809 will be the number for you to send those WhatsApp messages to. It is freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. I've got Chibuzor Nwaezeapu here with me dissecting the papers, and Gbugbemi Atimomo is also here. I'll start with you now, Chibuzor, on this one. With the Punch newspaper, Tinubu's government to spend 341 billion naira on judgment debts. Where is this taking us to?
Okay, basically this is nothing new. This is almost like this business as usual for most entities. Government is an entity in this instance. So typically, when you go to court against any, when two parties go to court, and when there's a financial judgment against one party, the other party is expected to, the party that received the judgment against it has to pay a certain amount of money. So in this instance, the government, federal government of Nigeria has had several judgments against it, which it's been liable financially to pay. So over the years, what the government has done basically is to issue out promissory notes, and these are for judgments that were happened between the plan is to settle this debt between 2023 and 2027, which is obviously the 4 years of this government. And these are not judgments that have happened now. These are basically they're basically setting this aside they're basically setting aside this money to be able to pay for those judgment debts basically. So when they have those judgments, they would give a promissory note and say, hey, I will pay this amount at this date, because of the court has awarded this judgment against me. So there's nothing new. I think organizations do this in their books. They set aside a part of money in their books on a yearly basis, especially when they have cases that particular values, just in case they have to make those payments and it doesn't affect their financial. So it's clear to everybody why that money has come out. So this is good practice, really. So I do hope that the government is obviously looking at, because I'm not sure which of the judgments they are looking at, if they are past or they are planning for future judgments or past judgments, but it's something that should happen over time, because I one of the things I've heard, and I do not have any proof of this, is when people talk about having cases against, we don't go to case against government because you don't win. So I do hope that it appears to be good practice that when this government does lose, because government won't win all the cases, and they have this is against them, they will actually pay up and set a standard for everybody to know that the judicial system does work and you can seek recourse through the judicial system when necessary.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's drift on now to the Vanguard newspaper this morning with this one coming in. And Gbugbemi, you seem to be on the road for the greater part of this show, I seem now, from moving away from the accident on the Eco Bridge axis, where this seemed to be a road-related story. Illegal checkpoints, IGP squad arrests police immigration officers. That's according to the Vanguard newspaper. So where did this occur?
Okay, so this is a welcome development. There was a raid on illegal checkpoints on this Seme Badagry Expressway. Uh, you know, by led by police officers under the instruction of the IGP, and they found out that they were illegal checkpoints operated by some policemen in collusion with some customs officials as well. And basically, this they have resolved this to be a an ongoing practice to be able to flush out the bad eggs within both institutions. Technically, so the activities of the legal checkpoints have led to disruptions in movements. There was a time I had to go to Benin Republic. I know how many checkpoints we faced on that road. A journey that should ordinarily take, assuming maybe an hour, could end up taking 2.5 hours simply because there's so many different checkpoints.
Yeah.
I know that the IGP, of if not just the current IGP, even previous IGPs, have made various statements about illegal checkpoints, not just along that corridor, but generally within the country. And it's nice to see that now this IGP is doing something about flushing out the people who are not mandated to be on checkpoints along the region. Basically because many of the officials who set up illegal checkpoints are there to extort people. Basically, that's it. And mostly, commercial transport workers, because quote unquote, they almost have no choice if they need to be let go. So this is a welcome development from the IGP and also the customs boss as well. There's also been a call, for them to also address maritime police, because it's been said that some of them have also appropriated parts of the customs job by blocking manifests, ordering shipping companies not to release manifests, and just hampering that process as well. So it's good that that they can bring a bit of sanity into that process.
Well, just observing the visuals that came out yesterday from the visit to the borders, in the northern part of the country, one would say generally one isn't really impressed with the facilities we find at our border. I've been through the Benin axis. I mean, that's apparently one of it's still, when you compare to what the state of borders in the other part of the country, honestly, it's not into what I saw yesterday during the visit. Just a moment, was I could visually say how you said you closed the border. It was virtually more probably a 2,000 or 3,000 padlock, 2 or 3 of them you use, and then a table and a chair. What's that?
Yeah, so we don't really have defined borders. It makes me laugh because I remember there was a time when a friend of mine was going through Seme, Seme, and he said that he didn't go through customs. So basically what happened was he went with some friends, they got to the border, got down, got on Okadas, and the Okadas took another route into Seme. So they didn't need to get their passport stamped, going in and coming out, and that's the state of our borders along, various parts of the country. They're just typically open pieces of land.
Honestly, when I saw that video, I said, oh, well, anyway, I hope someone is watching, and we hope we begin to make. When I see visuals of what is called border in some other parts, it's alive. It's not like it's deserted.
Yeah.
We must make attempts to develop those border areas to make life thrive there, so the bad people will move far away. But let's get into some of the messages this morning. Yemi from Marina says, "Good morning, guys." Yemi from Marina here. I laugh in Swahili when you say the junta is opening communications with ECOWAS. Sanusi went there in his capacity as a religious leader in the region. I guess Chibuzor alluded to that. I maintain my stance on the matter. Let the military go in there and flush them out. God bless Nigeria. That's from Yemi Marina. And God bless Africa, he says. And then I've seen a message coming in here from Chioma. Chioma says, good morning. If the junta leaders in Niger feel they are the best to make the country better than the previous government, then they should take a leaf from Egyptian President Al-Sisi, who partnered with the US and retired from military and is still a civilian president till this moment. Yinka Bolu comes up with this one saying, they I knew last month guys are not working, are not normal. Was me driving from Ebute Meta linking Yaba. We all stopped at the red light, and this yellow bus ran the red light. Then I asked the officer, Oga, why are you not arresting that bus? His response, is he normal? At that point, I concluded that for you to survive Lagos, you got to be mad. That's what Yinka Bolu speaking from experience, would say it's still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. We look forward to reading more of your messages on 0809-444-0981. Chibuzor, you would help us break this down. We're going to talk dollar naira relations and why is the naira doing as zonto at this moment, while I don't know, it's a very sad situation because of the way it's panning out right now. So walk us through this naira depreciation that we see now, as reported by this newspaper, saying that just a moment, I got it here now. Naira inches towards 1,000 naira per dollar at the parallel market. That's according to the Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, so story is as is as it says, and it's for obviously anybody who is doing transactions in forex, especially dollars at this point. This is not too good news. I mean, I don't want to use the word sad news, but basically, Daily Trust is pointing out that the naira is trending towards 1,000. We're not there yet. It's not there yet, but it's trending towards that point. In the parallel market, based on the exchange rate at the parallel market, the naira has hit as 925 in certain markets to the dollar. Now, if you look, the background to this is obviously that a lot of our transactions in forex, unfortunately, where we are today as a country, that we do import a lot of stuff. We do have to depend a lot on transacting in USD, and we've gotten to the point where that business or that activity is becoming more and more expensive for people to do, because it means I have to get that much naira to get a value of $1, which is obviously nowhere most Nigerians want to be. If you look at the background of this, obviously the new government has taken some steps when it came into power to try and sort out monetary policy. And one of the steps that he took to try and sort out the monetary policy, was to eliminate most of the multiple exchange windows that he had, and to streamline it to just one window. And basically, you have one official window now. I think that was going at about 890. And now you have a parallel market which is doing around 925, so there's about the difference of 35 naira thereabout. What also has been alluded to is that some of the black market traders are able to purchase or get access to the dollar at the official rate and trade it with that margin. Now, it's before we go up with our arms and fork knives and try to attack, it's basically what is just human behavior. It's trade. People are trading with the margins. The bigger picture for me is that the current government's fiscal policies need to come into play. We need to get to the point where the forex doesn't happen, the exchange rate doesn't happen on its own. It's not isolated. The economic activities have to back how much you exchange your currency for another. Let's remove all the other conspiracy theories.
So we've done one good part. We float the naira already, but what's the other half of it now? What are we producing to?
Yes. So what we've done is, well, it's not definitive, but at least we've taken a step. The government has taken a step in a direction that should, in its own viewpoint, or in their different advisors, give some sanity. The other part, like you said, is what are we taking to drive what we are pushing outwards to be able to get this money in. We need to have some alignment. It's one of the challenges I had with the last government, and that's why you saw the last central bank governor being more preeminent in discussions when you had to do with the economy than the minister for finance or the guys who are leading the Ministry of Finance. We do not want such a scenario again. You need to have those policies that now drives. And let's also Nigerians know this is the direction we are going as a people. This is what we need to push, and if we're able to do this, we should see impact on the other side. So it's sad for us at the moment, where like most Nigerians, I am hoping it's temporary, or I'm hoping that it's cyclical. Let me not use the word temporary, because obviously there are other things that push the drive for acquisition of forex. This is obviously summer break for a lot of the parents and their kids. Everybody's at home. People are traveling, despite whatever we say about the economy. People are traveling. People are putting together money to pay school fees. So there is some demand in getting dollars. Some people are planning to travel either for education or for the holidays. So people are acquiring dollars. So you do see it in cycles, but we're hoping that, personally, I am hoping it's cyclical, so that this doesn't, we bottom out this trend and we go back to at least something that is more acceptable. But we do need to get our fiscal policy in line to drive this thing.
Thank you very much, Chibuzor. Let's get back to the messages once again before I go to Gbugbemi on this one. I've got Chioma who sent a message back in saying, you're talking about our laughable borders. I'm 43 years old, and the toll gate heading to the international airport is pitiful. That's even inside, not even in the outskirts already now. With the amount of money they have collected and still collect with that shack of a place they call toll gate, this country needs a serious deliverance from all fronts. And next will come in this one, someone who's just been laughing out of Yinka Bolu's message. Yinka Bolu's message, he says, is the star for the morning. Next, it goes on Joseph May. Good morning, freshly pressed. Your vibrant analyst. And then it goes, why Nigeria is very rigid on economic decision. The previous administration told us that we will do currency exchange with China, yuan, so that the pressure on the dollar will reduce. Why can't they revisit the policies since many Nigerians import from China? That's from Joseph May from Silver Estate. Quick one.
So I just want to comment on that. They did that. That policy did happen, or that program did happen. I won't say it was a policy. It had a time limit. It had a cap, and I think both targets have been met within that time frame. So they can revisit that kind of program again, because I do think it does have some potential of easing some of the pressure. Since obviously, like you mentioned, there's a lot of trade between Nigeria and China. So it might also help out.
All right, Gbugbemi, take us through this final story. This one, strike. 50% of graduate doctors have left Nigeria, health experts. That's according to the Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, so there was the 17th Annual Scientific Conference and All Fellows Congress, organized by I think it was the National Postgraduate Medical College, and the president of the college, while speaking at the event, called on authorities to do the needful to reposition public health. The truth of the matter is that, I've always said it, we're in a state of crisis in the health sector. Our hospitals need we need better facilities, tools, equipment. We need to remunerate our doctors better. We need to improve the conditions across, and we don't even have enough doctors. We don't have enough healthcare professionals. So as things stand, going abroad is more favorable for them than staying here. And then we recall that we still have, the government still has issues with the resident doctors, which have not largely been addressed. So I think it's very important right now that government really needs to put this health sector as a front burner issue. That's the only thing that we have. If you walk into a hospital and you can't find a doctor, or you have to come back to seek medical appointments, then you can imagine if you needed treatment urgently and and there was nobody. That's where we're heading. Someone jokingly said that very soon we'll have recourse to only native doctors if we're not careful. And we're probably at that stage at some point.
I hope we don't get there.
Many hospitals don't have the required specialists that they need. Hospitals are having to call in specialists from other hospitals who are already under pressure, because there are not enough specialists in various practices.
And we hope we don't get to that point. So that's where we wrap up the show this morning. But before I say thank you to you, gentlemen, let's quickly get into the messages quickly. And this one is from Yinka Bolu. Dollar getting to 1,000 US dollar shouldn't be the problem. What should be a problem is that while it is going high, we are not producing and exporting. The South Korean won trades at about 1,270 to a US dollar, and heavens didn't fall. But guess what? They produce, they manufacture. I bet your TV made at home is Korea, at best Japanese. But the guys, guys, trust me, Nigerians spend too much time monitoring the FX market than focusing on things that they can do internally by measuring on the minor. Ajayi comes up with this one. He says, good morning. It's alarming that the naira continues in its free fall in the forex market, despite the so-called measures to strengthen it. Well, this is the consequence of adopting IMF and World Bank policy. That's coming from Ajayi Olinua from Magodo, GRA. Ifeanyi comes up here and he says, Ifeanyi, he has a message. He says, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Naira versus Forex, the final blow to deal to the harassment of dollar on the Naira production. And Choma comes back with a message here. When one of the presidential candidates was hammering on we need to move from consumption to production, they said we should allow the market determine the things, which isn't what economics sound right. And we react quickly to bringing out policies that are neither here nor there. Well, this is how far I can go. I see Izehi there. I see Williams, your messages, but we're out of time. But I want to say thank you to Chibuzor Nwaezeapu for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Omashe.
I want to say thank you to Gbugbemi Atimomo also for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
And that's a wrap on Freshly Pressed this morning. My name is Omatseye.